Great, Vinnie. So let me share with you a little bit more about Eternity. We are the digital experience management company. Let me tell you what that means, the types of problems we're solving for customers, and why we're well positioned to be the leader in this market. So digital experience is sort of at the core of almost every company in one way or another, whether they're an e-commerce company, a manufacturing company doing design work, they're a software company. And when that digital fabric fails, it absolutely undermines the business at what we call the point of productivity, that end user or that customer. And behind every digital experience is a series of clicks that drive a business process or a transaction. If those fail, then the businesses fail. And what Eternity can do is help companies have insight into every single one of those environments and help them better understand and make those perform better than they do on a day-to-day basis. So we're all focused on disruptions and business activities. So when we look at the business activities, we know that those disruptions can be predicted and prevented. But the reality is there's so much activity in the business, so many applications. Even a business our size, which is fairly small, we have over 200 business applications that make up our application infrastructure. And so any one of those disruptions can affect another part of the business process and ultimately have a massive impact on the business. And for some corporations that are multinationals, can bring those businesses down for days. You may have seen just in the last 24 hours, one of the major university hospital networks in the US got hit by a cyber attack. And they are down for the count. They're back to using paper to run their hospitals. So that's an extreme example, but disruptions in the application environment can have an equal and profound effect as well. I know Gartner is one of your favorite analyst firms, so we always talk about what Gartner says about this market, and it really does come down to, are you able to manage in a crisis and during disruption? It's not anymore about getting to the status quo, because there's so much going on in the infrastructure that something that happens over here can have a direct impact on something that happens over here. If you don't have visibility, all you're going to see is this and try and fix this without knowing that this is the problem. So it's really thinking differently about how you manage in that environment and keeping your finger on the pulse of the productivity of the business. The sad reality is that only about 20% of business applications today are being monitored at the end user level. That means almost 70% or 80% of those applications are operating without any kind of net. And as we see the effects of the pandemic continue to linger, 67% of companies have said that they will continue to allow people to remote work from home. And the impact of that is huge because, one, home could be anywhere. It could be at Aunt Sadie's house. It could be at Uncle Bob's house. It could be at your own house. It could be in the basement where the Wi-Fi signal isn't as good. It could be in the attic where it's better. It could be in Houston where it's humid and you start having a swollen battery because you don't have the climate control of your office. All these factors are changing every day. And without having your finger on the pulse of that, you're not going to know how to react in real time. So, what if you could have 100% visibility on every business transaction, increase customer retention and the employee satisfaction as well, making sure you know everything that's going on in a frictionless way. And finally, mobilize your digital workforce. Make sure people can work from anywhere that they want and be productive as they can possibly be, and use that to make the environment better every single day. Well, with Eternity, you can. And what we focus on is managing that digital experience at scale for every endpoint. We have customers that have over 300,000 endpoints being monitored on a daily basis, and we're the only player in the digital experience management market that can make that claim. So scale matters, performance matters, but getting insight into that environment is probably the most important thing. So let me tell you a little bit more about how we get that actionable insight on that user experience. And it really is at every device, at every click. If you think about end users, they're tied into business applications and transactions. They're focused on being productive. So let's say you have 50,000 people in a call center. You want to make sure those call center agents are being able to process transactions in an efficient way. And that productivity delivers performance. If you're making money on those transactions, or you're minimizing risk or reducing costs, things like claims management, monitoring that performance is equally important. If you think about the technology that those end users use, a laptop, a desktop, a Chromebook, All those devices have to be monitored. And many of our competitors do something called sampling. So instead of taking the real data from those devices, they'll take data from a small number, and then they'll say, well, based on the sample size, all devices are healthy. And the reality is you have to look at every single device, which we do. So we look at not only the front end, the end user device, but we look at the back end of the applications to make sure we're looking at the entire productivity story from the desktop back to the application server. And then you think about how those come up into the business outcomes. And this is really what resonates with CIOs is, I need to be performant. I need high productivity in my operations. I need to make sure that as I make changes in my infrastructure, that I can model those changes to make sure I can make performance even better. I mean, how many times have you heard stories of people that implement new applications only to find out that the business process performance is actually worse than the application they were using before? And the reality is it doesn't have to be that way. And we help companies every day make sure that that application fabric is as performant as it can be. When you think about the different types of use cases, we break it down into two types of use cases, sort of the IT use cases. So things like, how often should I be refreshing the laptops or desktops that I have in my business? And if you have 200,000 people, that's a major investment. So often our customers come to us and say, hey, our performance has been degrading, and one of our vendors told us that we have to replace all of our laptops with a different kind of laptop. Well, we can show you how your applications perform on any type of device. So you can see exactly where the issues are. And the case I mentioned is a real one, and it turned out that it was the application vendor who had a new release that was performing poorly, and it had nothing to do with the laptops. But things like managing collaboration application sprawl. How many licenses that I'm licensed for am I actually using? Can I say, hey, I'm licensed for 10,000, I'm only using 5, reduce my price? And we've seen companies save millions of dollars that way. Self-healing and remediation. When we see constant things coming up that require things like reboots or the blue screen of death, how do I automatically remediate those? But then I move it up into the business use cases, and it's monitoring those business critical business activities, SLAs based on business processes, XLAs, experience level agreements, which is becoming a very new thing, to make sure that the outsourced providers are not only committing to a certain uptime, a certain reliability, but what kind of experience is the end user having? And that's becoming very critical as well. So all of these things have a direct impact on operations and performance. You can see all these different things drive value for customers and allow them to run their systems more efficiently. So when you think about those 4 things, the users and devices, one of the things that we do that nobody else does is we can track productivity from the user all the way back to the application. So I can look at the entire history of an event, and I can show you how much time was spent on the device, how much time was spent on the network, how much time was spent in the server. And then I can go take action on that. Nobody else does that. And when you have thousands of applications, that's absolutely critical in finding the things quickly that have a direct impact on performance. We have one large insurance customer that had 15,000 users using Click technologies, and all of a sudden their mission critical Click applications started performing horribly, and they couldn't figure out what it was. And we were able to go in using our software and show that a third-party SaaS application had done an upgrade to their system, which was now consuming far more memory than the previous version had and having a negative impact on Click. And we were able to get that SaaS application vendor to roll that back. So the Click performance is back where it had to be. So that happened in a matter of hours, not weeks, which is usually what it would have taken. So when you think about our company, we're over 600 customers today. We have over 3 million endpoints in our SaaS environment that we monitor today. That also gives us a unique capability to look across companies, across regions, across industries, and show our customers how they compare to other customers using similar applications. That benchmarking capability, something we call the Digital Experience Magic Quadrant, or the DEMQ, is getting a lot of attention because people want to see how their performance in digital transformation compares to their peers. So great payback, super integrations and partnerships, and we've been running as a SaaS platform for over 5 years. As I said, the most scalable, most reliable platform in the market today. When you look at sort of the reviews that we get, we deliver on our promises. Westpac Bank in Australia rolled out 30,000 endpoints in under 3 days to make sure that they could have the kind of reliability in the pandemic. But what we also give people is the ability to see inside this data, to look deep down and understand what is it in particular that affects their organization and affects the behavior of their organization. So it's a very powerful platform with deep and actionable insights that all of our customers can use. So what we're doing with Intel, as I mentioned, we announced a strategic partnership with them last week to improve the digital experience. And I want to share with you exactly what we're doing in that regard. As we've talked about before, digital experience is all about managing the end user productivity environment, and failure in that digital experience has a direct impact on business, whether it's on your employer or your customer. And every day we help companies better understand how that environment works. But these disruptions can be predicted and they can be prevented. And working with Intel and Intel's vPro group, we're able to use their predictive and proactive approach to finding out what exactly is going on. So as part of our partnership, we'll be extracting data from the Intel chipsets, data that nobody else has had access to before, that relate directly to remote work statistics, like how is your Wi-Fi performing? What are the environmentals doing? Just more granular information that's going to make it easier for people to understand not only how the environment's performing, but how their Intel processors are performing as well. So we'll be sharing with over 50 Intel enterprise customers our platform and giving them the capability to see how their chipsets are performing and to give them access to data that they've never seen before. So when we think about applications that are being monitored, it's only 20% today. We're going to go down beneath the surface of the iceberg and make sure that we can expose that. And a lot of that new information coming from the Intel chip will really allow customers to understand where the issues are. One of the things that we heard recently is, managing in this kind of pandemic is all about, handling crisis. And the companies that are going to do well here will be able to do that by giving them more insight into their digital experience. Intel and Aternity are going to empower them to be able to have those insights and take immediate action. So we're working with the vPro group, part of the client computing group at Intel. And what we're doing as part of our strategic partnership is being able to demonstrate to customers what the new chipsets bring to the table. And there's some fascinating new features that relate directly to a remote work environment. So by surfacing the power of those features to customers, they'll be able to say in an instant why they should upgrade to those Intel chipsets in their work infrastructure. So we'll be focused on optimizing that employee experience, helping them manage that constant IT transformation. And I think we'll see, as an example, more customers adopting these Intel chipsets because they do have more people working remotely. And some of the new advanced features are designed just for that. But it also allows companies to benchmark their digital experience to make sure they're getting the most out of it as well. So that's what we're doing. Well, we're thrilled with our partnership with them. We've been working closely together for the last 3 months, and we'll be bringing this and rolling it out to market in January.